Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. In today's video, we're going over the best PlayStation 1 emulator on Android, Duckstation. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, PS1 emulation on Android has come a long way. Previously, there were two kings of PS1 emulation on Android. One was EPSXE and the other one was FPSE. You might have noticed that both of these apps cost money. In the States, they go for about $3.49 each. In Canada, they're $4.29 and $4.25. The best free alternative has usually been RetroArch, but unfortunately, this is not the most user-friendly app out there. And even though I've got a pretty handy guide on how to get up and started with RetroArch, some people just want an easier and arguably better solution. And fortunately, there is an app that's free, open source, and incredibly easy to use. Welcome to the new king of PlayStation 1 emulation on Android, Duckstation. There is one catch though. Unfortunately, with Duckstation, you will need to provide your own PS1 BIOS file. And if you don't know what that is and don't know what it looks like, I will leave this link in the description below if you do want to check it out. This website is really great for educational purposes. It provides a really good reference as to what exactly you need. If you download Duckstation and try to run a game but you don't provide a BIOS file, this is the error message you will receive, and you won't be able to play the game unless you provide that BIOS. Now, in most cases, you'll have a BIOS file that's in a zipped folder, or if you have a game that's in a zipped folder and you need to unzip it. There are two different ways to do this. One way is to download an app like Z-Archiver here, or Z-Archiver I guess, and you can use that to unzip your files. The other way is just to unzip them on your computer and then transfer the unzipped files over to your phone. Either way works, so whatever is your personal preference here. Once you've installed Duckstation and you've transferred your games and BIOS files over to your phone, when you open Duckstation for the first time, it'll ask you to access your photos, media, and other files on your device. You'll want to say allow. From there, tap the plus button on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. This will allow you to add your games. From here, navigate to the folder where you put your games and then click Use this folder. It'll automatically populate your games. If you don't remember or can't locate your games, just click Use this folder and it should automatically find them. When adding your games, it may ask for permission to access your file. In this case, you'll want to say allow. Up to this point, if everything has gone well, you should see your games populate in the Duckstation menu. If not, you may need to either unzip your game from a zipped folder or may need to get a completely different copy of your ROM. From here, select a game that you want to play and click it. It'll let you know again that it's missing a BIOS file, but from here, if you've already put the BIOS file on your phone, click Yes to find it. From here, you will have to be specific as to where exactly you put your BIOS file. You will have to point Duckstation to the exact location. And if you have multiple BIOS files, just try one or two of them and see which one works. If all goes well, you should see a message like this. From there, you don't even need to configure the emulator if you don't want to. You can just go ahead and play your game as you see fit. But if you want to configure things and maybe try to get the most out of your system, then pay attention to what's next. Duckstation has a ton of options that really allow you to tinker around with things and optimize your games. If you are tinkering around, I do recommend exiting out of pretty much whatever game you're in and opening up the settings menu from the main menu. One of the really great features that I like about Duckstation is how detailed the description is for every single option. So if you aren't sure of what something is, just read the description because they're all highly detailed. Even though there are some interesting options available on the General tab, I don't really recommend changing anything. But if you are running into some pretty severe issues when trying to emulate, you could always try changing the GPU renderer. Try changing it from OpenGL to Vulkan to see if that even helps, or just try changing it to software. On the Display tab, I recommend showing the FPS. Make sure that setting is turned on. That'll put a number in the top right-hand corner of your screen, and with that number, you can easily tell how your games are running. If the number is jumping around a lot, you might have some issues. If it's steady at like 59.97, chances are your games are running just fine, and I'll show an example of that coming up. In the Audio tab, you don't really need to change anything here, but if you want to, you can tinker around. In the Enhancements tab, this is where you can make your games beautiful, but at the expense of performance. By default, the resolution scale is at 1x. If you increase the resolution scale, you'll notice an immediate improvement in graphics. but you might also start to notice a slowdown. I recommend checking to see if your game even runs at 1x resolution in the first place before even changing this. If your game is running smooth at 60 frames a second, then yeah, you can change it and check it out. If you are going to change it, maybe go to 3x first and then maybe 5x at maximum. I don't really recommend going over 5x for two different reasons. The first reason is it's probably going to impact performance, and the second reason is that it's extremely hard on your phone. You'll notice your phone heating up considerably. In order to keep your phone cool and performing well, I don't really recommend cranking the resolution too much. On the Enhancements tab, there's also something called multi-sample anti-aliasing. I do recommend leaving it disabled by default, but if you want, you can increase this just a little bit. The highest I'd recommend going here is just 2x. By default, texture filtering is set to nearest neighbor, but you can change this to bilinear. There are other options here, but my recommended two choices are nearest neighbor or bilinear, and if you don't really know what any of these do, just leave it on nearest neighbor. The controllers tab is pretty simple and straightforward. If you're using an external Bluetooth controller, you can check out the controller mapping option as well as the auto hide touchscreen controller. Since you're using a controller in your hands, you don't really need to see one on the phone screen. But if you're not using a controller and you're using touchscreen controls instead, and maybe you want a little bit more feedback, you can always click vibrate on press, and this will vibrate your phone every time you press a button. To me, that gets annoying after a while, so I usually leave it off. And if you want to experience a rumble effect that a controller normally provides, you can click Enable Vibration, and it'll vibrate your phone as if it was a controller. In the Advanced tab, you really don't need to change anything at all, but there is one option that I absolutely love. If you're tinkering around with things and maybe your game just isn't running the way it used to, you can click Disable All Enhancements, and that'll remove pretty much everything you did to screw up how things are going. For example, I was messing around with some graphics options, and this is what the main menu in Pocket Fighter ended up looking like. Obviously, this is not right at all. So I went to the advanced menu, I clicked Disable All Enhancements, I rebooted the game, and the menu's fixed. So here's Street Fighter EX2 running on the PlayStation 1, and it's currently at 1x resolution, the native resolution of the PS1. On top of that, if you go to the top of the screen, you can see it's running at 59.8.7.9, give or take, FPS, and this means it's running at pretty close to full speed without any slowdowns. You don't see the frame rate dipping at all. One of the great things about Duckstation is that you can actually change the resolution scale mid-game. You don't have to reset your game to do it. So what I'm going to do is change the resolution from 1x to 5x, which is 1080p. So now here's the resolution sitting at 1080p, 5x the regular resolution of the PlayStation 1. It's still running fairly well. I'm sitting at about 59 frames a second still, and it's remaining pretty steady, which is great emulation. Now I've bumped the graphics up to 4K, and immediately you can see the performance take a pretty massive hit. I'm using a Google Pixel 5 and it's not handling this well at all. You can see the frame rate is around 20, which is abysmal. Now, if you are running an older phone or maybe a lower end Android phone, you might run into emulation problems. And in that case, I wouldn't recommend cranking the resolution at all. Just keep it at 1x and hope for the best. Duckstation is updated quite often and the developer is actually pretty active and engaged. So if you are having issues with a specific phone or maybe a specific game, let the developer know and there is a chance they'll fix it. Now, I've used Duckstation on a few different phones and I haven't really run into any performance issues with it. I'd actually recommend it over FPSE and EPSXE. Anyways, that is all I've got for today. Let me know your thoughts on Duckstation in the comments below. Is it your new king of PS1 emulation on Android? To me, it is undisputed. It's free, it's open source, and it's pretty amazing. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Thank you everyone, take care.